Hola, SAP developers. Welcome to this session, part of the Devtoberfest 2025. Before we start, please feel free to drop us your questions at the chat window, as we'll be monitoring it, and we will answer some of your questions there and some of your questions live also to the speakers. Well, today we have Krishna and Mahesh, who will tell us how we can accelerate SAP CAP and Fiori development with different AI tools. Exciting, isn't it? Without any further delay, hola, Krishna, Mahesh, over to you guys.
Hey, thanks everyone. Welcome to this session. Welcome to Devtoberfest. So today we are going to talk about how can you accelerate SAP application development with AI tools. So this is going to be lots of tips and tricks which we have learned and our experience. So we're going to share our experience on how to really get best out of AI tools in a typical developer's journey. Okay, so this is going to be the agenda for today evening. Quickly, so we'll have a quick introduction between me and Mahesh. Then we are going to look into AI tooling for knowledge management. So as a developer gets in, what are the knowledge management tools a developer can use to kickstart his journey in a particular SAP project. So then we will see, other than coding, what are the bootstrapping? How can you really speed up bootstrapping rather than using CDS init or maybe UI5 generators? How better you can do bootstrapping using AI tools. Then Mahesh will take over and he's going to explain us how you can build new and complex features without getting bogged down by the LLM's hallucination problem. So then I will take over and quickly talk about how I have been making use of GitHub's code review concepts. And then after we do all these things, probably when we go live, we usually want some data manipulation and data uploads. So I'm going to quickly talk about how I have used agents for quickly creating spreadsheets to be uploaded into databases. So with that, maybe Mahesh, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Thanks, Krishna, for the introduction. So, hello everyone, and I'm Mahesh Palwalli. I work as an architect in the office of the CTO team at SAP Labs, Bengaluru, and I know Krishna from quite a long time. So we used to share a lot of knowledge, and we know from SAP community. We used to attend SAP community events, and knowing community members is also an advantage. So I got an opportunity to write a book with Krishna as well. So it's on SAP CAP development long back. And that's a very short introduction about me. And I'll continue once my my part comes in.
Sure. Thanks, Mahesh. Yeah, I'm Krishna Kishore Kamaje. I'm an SAP mentor. I have been coding in SAP space for last 22 years, and I still love it. Just like as Mahesh said, we have been exchanging our AI tools, what works, what not. So we thought it's a good idea to share with the community. That's how this session was born. Yes, let's get started. Okay, so how software development has changed in the AI world? I mean, we all know that we all use IDEs, and auto-completion is some of our favorite features, right? So from auto-completion, we have gone into AI completion. Then we have, then the AI tools came in, back in 2023 when ChatGPT came, we were all too excited. We went into ChatGPT and asked our coding questions as well, but many people really got a bad feedback because of all these hallucinations, and they never went back. But parallelly, because of these LLM tools, lots of IDEs, IDEs started developing, like Cursor AI, Windsurf, and so many others, maybe Claude Code, right? So because of this, and these were initially just taking care of your prompts and giving you the code, but gradually all these graduated into agentic development, meaning they're able to use various tools, and then they were really able to make a much bigger impact. So today we will see all those features and what are the various various experiences of ours which really helped us. Okay, so let's take a persona to start with, meaning, okay, I as an SAP developer go into an existing SAP project, right? So where this project has been running, say, for maybe 1 or 2 years. So I, as a developer, get into this project, onboarded into the project. So what are my immediate problems, right? Immediate bottlenecks for me to hit the ground running. As I see, my first main problem is the domain knowledge. Recently, I got into a project, not recently, maybe a year back, I got into a project where an Australian customer working in elderly healthcare. I had no idea about that. I have friends who got into a customer who works on clinical trials, where the domain knowledge is completely different. So what I'm saying here is there are tools, AI tools, which will help you to gain a new domain knowledge, much more efficiently in much shorter time. Okay, so I'll just show you what I got to do with the project which I just talked about. So what you're seeing here is notebook LM. Okay. Okay. So this is notebook LM, which is Google's product. So again, I'm talking about there is a new program called Support at Home for Australia. Okay, and in this program, just give me a moment. Sorry, really got distracted. Okay, so in this support at home, we have multiple documentations which are available, which are given by Australian government, and these all provide us the details about support at home program, which caters about elderly care in Australia. So what I have done here is I have basically uploaded multiple PDFs. You can add more PDFs, or you can even add YouTube videos, or if you have multiple documents from your Google Drive as well. So as you see here, there are up to 50 source limits, which you can add. I think with premium editions, you have much more, sources which you can add as well. There is a discover sources as well, where you can fetch public sources which are available as well. So once I add all those things, what happens is a chat becomes available to me where I can ask questions related to, and get all this domain knowledge, get my questions answered in this domain. Not only that, the best thing about it, my favorite feature is an audio overview, which basically creates a podcast for me, which I can listen, as I on my commute way back home, right? So whenever you gain any knowledge, as science says, the more number of media you use to get your knowledge from, maybe like an audio, from a video, maybe from a quiz. So try to diversify the knowledge sources. The knowledge really sinks in much faster, right? So that's why this is a great tool. You have a podcast which comes in, and in this podcast, you can actually join the podcast and you can ask, as the host talk about the podcast, you can actually join them and ask questions. It's all audio, real time. And it also creates a video where basically it creates a presentation for you and explains the concept. And there is a mind map. There is a quiz as well. Maybe quickly, let's have a look. It basically creates a quiz based on, okay, let me look into the generated quiz already. Yeah, it basically asks me a 10-question quiz, which I can again fine tune. I can say that this time I'm interested in how claims are processed in support at home Australia, right? I can ask those specific questions and get a quiz, or I can do this for my podcast videos as well. So ultimately, this is a great tool for you to get the domain knowledge which you require in your project. So if you do not have Google Notebook LM, or if you have some, private work which has classified work which you do not want to publish to Notebook LM. ChatGPT has projects as well. And even Office 365 has a notebook. It has released recently. Most of our customers are Office 365 as well. So I think you can use which almost has all these features as Notebook LM as well. And of course, it's adding more features. And say, for example, you use Jira for your knowledge management. There again, they have recently introduced Ask Rovo, basically a ChatGPT, a chat interface for you to ask questions from your Atlassian knowledge documents. So that has been helping me amazingly for gaining the domain knowledge. So once you gain the domain knowledge, what next? You want to get project-specific technical knowledge, right? So which is in maybe multiple documents, or ideally for me, most of the time, I like to look into the code, right? In most of my customers, they used to use GitHub as their version management. That's great because GitHub provides you Copilot just in the browser itself. Okay, so let's open GitHub, for example. So there is a chat with Copilot here right away. So what you can do is you can basically add all the repositories which you want, details from. For example, I will add all the SAP samples here to start with. Okay, maybe I'll say cap test flight, HANA samples, Fiori elements, maybe Fiori tools. Okay, so I have added multiple repositories, and now I can ask maybe what are the various SAP BTP services these repositories are using. Okay, list them. So I can ask such questions. So yeah, it's pretty fast. It basically says that HANA Cloud, Business Application Studio, Access UIA, Connectivity Service Destination. For each of the repos, it can give data. You can also ask for 1,000 feet overview of what each repository does, what is the link between each repositories, or if there is a field in the UI and you want to trace it all the way to the database, right? You can ask such questions. So I feel overall, if you can use, if you use GitHub, this is a great tool for you to, understand various integrations which are there and all such things. And other than that, you might have lots of recorded knowledge transfer videos, right? So what you can actually do is extract all the transcripts out of them. These days, be it SharePoint or be it Zoom meetings, all of them give you transcripts. You can actually copy all those transcripts and upload into maybe Google Notebook LM or ChatGPT projects and maybe ask questions again, right? You really don't have to go through all those knowledge transfer videos. Rather, use these tools to ask pointed questions, get 1,000 feet overview first, and then deep dive. So these are the few things which really have been helping me.
Krishna, I want to add one point. So I think it's very important that you mentioned that documentation, domain knowledge, all these are right. I mean, we were discussing this a lot, right? So now the developer or architect roles, right? The roles themselves are evolving. If you see, in typical project, we have product manager, functional consultant, QA, architect, developers, right? So right now, the way with the agentic coding is, the roles are getting blurred. So as a developer, I think we all should be basically think beyond development, right? We need to offload our work to these agents, right? But again, you need to oversee them. And at the same time, you also need to learn the domain knowledge as a product manager. And you need to test well as a QA, or maybe to write the unit test, or to ask the agent to write the unit test. And as an architect, you need to architect, right? So to understand the technical domain knowledge and all. Of course, you are not going to write, right? But at least we need to have this, the idea that the developer role itself is changing, right? Beyond the developer role. Okay, go ahead.
Rightly. Yeah, I completely agree. So, as you rightly pointed out, I think, we always said that domain knowledge is important for developers. But as we move in this AI world, I feel that domain knowledge or the 1,000 feet overview is much more required, much more needed than before, right? So you do not want a set of syntaxes to be implemented. These AI tools are very capable of implementing. If you really break down the tasks and give them, they will implement it. But what is really needed for developers, as we see it, is a 1,000 feet overview, ability to link multiple systems, an architectural mindset, or ability to really come out of syntax and really see the big picture. I think that's what these AI tools can really give you. Okay, so now we have got the 1,000 feet overview, we have got the domain knowledge, right? Now we are getting into the code, right? So let's see what else, what else has really helped me. Okay, so I'm getting into GitHub Copilot. I have opened, VS Code here and GitHub Copilot on the left-hand side. Okay, so I have opened one particular app here, which is called UI5. It's an UI5 app manage vendors, right? So now I'm going to ask it, basically, let me just copy the prompt from here. Okay, I'm going to ask, can you summarize this particular project for me? I'm already familiar with UI5 development and guidelines. I just want to know something that is non-standard, which is done in this project, which I need to learn, right? Okay, as you see here, I use Claude Sonnet 4.5. So this is Claude Sonnet's latest coding model. And I think even Mahesh agrees, this is the best model which we are seeing for developers. There are other models which are coming, like ChatGPT, OpenAI's Codex models. But right now, Claude Sonnet 4.5 is the undisputed leader, is what we are seeing, and it works well for all our SAP tasks as well.
Krishna, I recently changed my mind. I was using OpenAI, this Codex, right?
Codex?
So Codex uses Codex model, OpenAI GPT-5 Codex model, and it is very good. I like that one.
Great to hear. So I think 4.5 or Claude Sonnet models, they're like, a monopoly kind of thing in developer, but OpenAI is really making big strides, and I think it's catching up. So yeah, more the competition, better for developers. Okay. So let it take some time. Meanwhile, what I will do is I will fire up another IDE. This time I'm using Cursor IDE. Okay. So here I have opened the same repo here as well. That is SAP UI5 Managed Vendors. So I'm going to ask is, can you look into this project? Okay. Can you look into this project, use context 7 MCP server, and create a markdown file listing all the deprecated controls that this project uses. Okay, so maybe I'm an experienced developer now. As a team lead, it's my responsibility to look into the project and ensure that we do not use any deprecated controls, right? So okay, so you might be wondering, what is this context 7 MCP server? Basically, context 7 ensures an MCP server, you can think of it as which calls an API in the backend, and which basically context 7 basically API, it creates an API for all your documentations. So in the context 7 website, if you go there are already documentation for UI5, CAP, and all these are already added. So I have configured context 7 MCP within the IDE. You can basically, and if you are not aware, you can look for MCP and context 7 later. But basically, I'm saying, do not depend on your knowledge for figuring out what is deprecated. Rather, use the latest documentation from context 7 MCP. Okay, so let me fire that as it does.
And that will reduce hallucinations, right, Krishna? Because that is old knowledge.
Right. So it's no longer dependent on the old knowledge when it was trained. Rather, it actually gets the latest documentation. Okay. So now let's see the VS Code and figure out what it does, what it really said. So it says that in controller, what are the non-standard patterns, right? That's what I asked it. It says that usually in controller.extend, this uses something like $.extend. This is a jQuery's $.extend pattern. This is highly unusual, but it has many advantages. That's what it says. There is a dual OData v4 data sources. There are a couple of OData services which are used here. there are multiple named JSON models, right? Usually you might have one OData and one JSON model, and here they have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or more multiple JSON models we used here. The important thing for me is they used a feature flag system, right? These are very important for me to really understand that there is a feature flag which is getting used here. And of course, there are promise, wrap, OData, V4 operations, basically custom PDF generation utility. That's a utility. And it basically makes me aware of what are the different things, which I need to be a bit aware before contributing to this project, right? So yeah, this is great. So let me go back. Okay, so deprecated controls. It has basically created this one. And if I open the preview so that it looks better, it basically says that it's basically, okay. So analysis today, it was analyzed on a SAP AI version because manifest.json specifies that. There is a summary there, list of controls which are, which are deprecated, and it also suggests you, alternatives. Whenever, so deprecated since and all such details. I think these are amazingly helpful for people who are in, leadership roles, and I mean like a team lead or someone like a technical architect who really needs to drive what controls to be used and what not. Okay, so that's how I think we can really, get ahead understanding huge code bases. Not only that, you can even ask it to create mermaid diagrams. Say, for example, you have a CAP app where data comes from UI to backend, then to say Salesforce, SuccessFactors, S4HANA, right? You can ask it to create a mermaid diagram. So it will create a mermaid diagram of various flows. Then you can use mermaid diagrams, live editor, and visualize, right? So these are great tools, which you can use for getting more information about the code base. Okay, moving on. Hope things are visible to you. So here, I want to show you something which I did recently. Basically, here I'm asking, this was in, I think, not sure where it was. Basically, I'm asking, can you look into the Git history and tell me who added this particular line? I'm giving it a context saying that in the detail view, line number 26, I'm more worried about who added this particular feature flag. Okay, if you're good in Git, you may not really like this. If you're good in Git command line, you might go to Git history, list down all the history, figure out what are the changes. But I'm really, really lazy. I'm not good at Git command lines. So this is what I ask these command line tools. So see what it has done. It is using my command line. It's going into changing the directory to that. Then it's using multiple Git shows, looking for that particular line, and ultimately it gave me this particular analysis, which clearly told me that this particular line was changed by this particular person on this particular day, and what other things which he has done. And I also asked, I'm worried about who added this feature flag, and it said that this feature flag was added by this person, right? So what I'm trying to say is these AI tools are not only for coding. You actually have to look out and see that what are the other tools, other use cases for which you can use AI tools for. Okay, so now, we have got all the domain knowledge, technical knowledge, figuring out who has worked on what and all such things. Now, say you have been asked to create a new project. Okay, so let me again open Visual Studio Code. Okay, so how you used to bootstrap earlier? Probably if it was a CDS, you used to call CDS init. If it was UI5, maybe Yeoman generators. But the problem with that is project already has multiple repositories, right? So they really have their own styles, right? If I go to this particular mti.yaml, I see that this is how they define resources and services, right? So they specify the name of the app, then HTML5 repo host, right? So there is a particular style and how these are getting used, right? Say, for example, there are some dev dependencies, how we really package. Here they are using rimref, right? You do not want to use particular different set of tool sets, right? Maybe for logging, here they are using Datadog instead of, say, BTP's logging service, right? So that means whenever they are using Datadog, then in MTA.yaml, they will be not using SAP's logging service, right? So many things really change. If you use CDS init, you actually generate a boilerplate, and then you're going to do lots of search and replace, change lots of things, right? Rather, what I'm saying is when you already have a UI5 app for managed vendors, let's ask GitHub Copilot to go and copy that and create a bootstrap for me, right? Do not really, you don't have to use all those tools. Rather, let's depend on the LLM tools to really create a bootstrap. So let's try doing that. Okay, I think I did that some time back. Okay, or let me quickly do that. So what I'll do is I'll create an empty folder now, add folder to workspace. Say I will create a new folder. I will say SAP UI5, manage customers, right? Manage vendors was already there. Let me create something called as manage customers. I will add it to my workspace, okay, which is completely empty. Now I will say, okay, I have my command here. Let me copy this. Create a new chat window. Okay, I'm saying is I have SAP UI5 manage vendors. Okay, let me run it and then read it for you in the workspace. Now I want to create a similar application for managing customers. Okay, I have an empty folder in the workspace. Create the app, ensure that you use the latest UI5 version, copy configurations like MTA.yaml, package.json, and how you locally start the application. Ensure that you create a boilerplate very similar to the existing app. Okay. So for example, the way you run, right, in package.json, if you see, whenever I do npm run dev, it basically runs a bash command, right? So I basically want to copy all those things, right? I do not want to do it in a different way. Okay, so let it create. Meanwhile, okay, so we can go back to it later. Now I will hand it over to Mahesh, and when I come back, I will show you the results of this. Mahesh, do you want to take over?
Yes, thanks, Krishna. So I'll share my screen now. Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible, right? Awesome. So now I'll take an example from SAP CapJS community maintained example repositories, right? So I'll take this incident application. So what I'll do is, I'll try to extend this application by adding something called processors. Processors are nothing but agents, right? Not the LLM agents, but the actual agents who is going to process it, right? So let's call them as processors. So processors processors can be assigned, and also there should be an application to manage the processors, right? So to do that, of course, there are many ways. Right now, Krishna told about one way. And the other approach is vibe coding. So I know probably, many of you already know about vibe coding. If you have not heard it, then I can't do anything about it. But vibe coding is like pretty crazy right now, the term vibe coding. So vibe coding is like basically you interact with the coding agent, like just now Krishna is doing, right? So and then you interact with it, you generate the application, right? But will it work? Probably to a certain extent for the POCs. But for the real enterprise applications, you need to think like a architect, like a developer, like a product manager. I was just touching upon that, right? So you need to think beyond vibe coding, right? Vibe coding may be good for POCs. So what do you mean by thinking beyond vibe coding, right? So beyond vibe coding is, so why vibe coding first of all fail? It fails because it doesn't have enough context about your project, which just now Krishna is talking about, right? It doesn't know your project structure, probably sometimes. It knows, it can go and read it, but what about the best practices, guidelines, design guidelines, any integrations, any libraries that you need to use? So how does it know? It doesn't know. It's like a powerful junior developer without having the memory. The right way to say is they have a short-term memory loss, right? And they don't know anything about organization, but they are like very powerful junior developer, right? So you need to treat these agents just like that, right? And then how do you basically ensure that they are going to generate the application in the enterprise grade level. So you need to ensure that they follow the standards properly, right? When they're developing a CAP application, there might be so many standards that are there, right? There might be so many integrations that are there. You need to consider everything, right? So how do you, first of all, ensure that an application developer develops an application properly? You give them a technical specification. You give them a product specification. You do a lot of these different things. And probably if you think from the Zaira perspective or Agile perspective, right? So you also create tasks, assign one task to the user, right? To the developer, to ask them to execute it. And once it is done, ask them to execute the second task, or maybe you parallelize and give it to multiple developers. So what I'm trying to say is you need to also think of these LLM agents, coding agents, or IDEs, same like that, right? So you need to follow an approach where you pass the right context via different specifications and ensure that the LLM, these coding agents, create the application as deterministically as possible, right? So for that, we need specifications. So there are many ways to do it. I think last week, one of our colleagues has shown the demo using Cline. They created the Cline loop. They created different rules, right? So they call them as product specification. This is a dummy spec that I have created long back. So basically, I'm just telling to create a PRD, product requirement document, and it should be test-driven development, right? TDD is very important, right? And follow the TDD and ensure the UI is generated and tested properly. So I just gave some small details and told and also mentioned in the rule that create the tasks properly. Task, subtask, something in those lines, and after every completion, mark it. So basically, I'm just creating a small rule to ensure to create a PRD that has these details. I mean, if I can go here and see, you can see here in the PRD, see it created what are the things that needs to be done, right? So my initial requirement is to create an incident application. So it created different details here. You can see what are the entities that are required and what are the tasks. Of course, this application is already generated, so it marked everything as completed. So this is a very simple way of doing it, right? So what I'm trying to say is you don't need any external tools. You can simply ask the LLM or the chart to generate a product requirement document with some tasks and then go along with it, right? So that is one way of doing it. And also, if you see, I'm also passing some CAP Fiori based rules, right? You can also pass your own rules, but now there is, like Krishna said, context 7 MCP is there, or even from SAP side, we have CAP MCP is there, CDS MCP, and the Fiori and UFA, different MCP servers are there, right? So there's one way of doing it. It's very small way, but technology has evolved, right? So there's so many open source contributions up there. So like, for example, you see there is something called Taskmaster. This is one of the very famous. I mean, you can see that 22,000 stars, right? So this is also one approach where you create the PRD and create different tasks and link those tasks and generate the application, right? So this is like, you can imagine why it is 22,000 stars, right? Because many people benefited from this spec-driven approach, right? And there are also other things like open spec and all. But today, there are so many approaches. I'm going to use something called GitHub Spec Kit, right? So this is also something to create the specifications, and from the specifications, you develop the application, right? So what I'll do is, I'm not going to do a live demo. If I do that, it will take a hell of a lot of time because, like I mentioned, specifications needs to be created first. And specifications are not like vibe coded in 5 minutes or 1 minute, right? They take a lot of time. You need to interact with the LLM agents to create the specifications, to put all the technical details, validate if it is the specifications are correct or wrong, and then hand over the specifications to the coding agents to develop the applications. So that is what is the best way to do it. And it takes at least more than an hour, right? At least an hour, right? To even generate a small application in a very deterministic way without errors, right? In properly following standards. So that's why I created some application already, and I'm going to show that what I did, right? So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to use a spec kit, and which is an open source one from the GitHub. Or like I said, you can use any other tools out there. And let me share my VS Code. Sorry, I'll use cursor, right? So of course you can do this with Cline, you can do this with the GitHub Copilot, any tool you can use to do this one, right? So as you see, this is nothing but a clone of the incident application, right? So what I'll do is, let me run this up. I think this is already running. Yeah, this is already running. So let me run this. Yeah, it's very simple application, incident application. Nothing is there here. No processor, nothing. So what I'll do is I'll just go back and I'll go back to here. So yeah, so this is a very simple application. So now what I'll do is I'll go back here. I'm in the phase 1 branch. I'll go through different branches to show you what are the different stages that are there, right? Let's go back to the spec kit. So first you need to install, right? So you need to install it and then so on and so forth, right? So you need to specify init. You need to call this command after installing. So what I'll do is I already have a project here. I'll do specify init to instantiate the spec-driven development here, right? I'll just do that. So when I do that, of course, yeah, yes, and then I'll connect it to my cursor agent. Like I said, it can connect to different coding tools and agents here. Yes. So what it's going to do right now is, yeah, I think it already created, right? If I go here, it created different rules here. These are the different rules. I mean, basically they are commands, right? So what this command does is, for example, let me show here. I can do that slash, and then I can mention specify, right? And then I can mention my requirement over here. So basically what this does is, if I can go a little bit here inside, it has different commands. One is constitution. Constitution means how my application is going to be developed, right? I need to have some rules. Maybe I need to use attachment service, or maybe I need to use audit block cap plugin, or maybe something else I have to use, right? So, or maybe I have to develop the application in a right way. I need to follow test-driven approach, right? So there are different principles are there. I mean, these are some of the examples. Let me show here. In this, I mean, it will also generate this one, right? Where the templates will be there. So if I go here, so there are so many, these are just some examples, right? For example, there is one thing called test-driven approach. Write test. Once it is approved, then fail. Why they do that is, why it is recommended approach for LLMs is because LLMs hallucinate a lot, right? If you ask it to develop some application, it will say, everything is fine, working perfectly. But when you run it, it will not work. So that's why you ask the LLM itself to create a test case first. Of course, it will fail. And then it will ask it to run the test case, ensure it is successfully running. Then only you will say it is closed. So then it will run the test. When it fails, errors will come and so on and so forth. Then it will be very deterministic, right? So that is a constitution. But of course, for this demo, I removed all this because I want it to be very simple, very short exercise, right? So I removed everything and I executed different projects here. So let's not do that here. Let me just close it. So what I do is, first you have to run this, right? Run this and execute the, I'll show here. So once you run this spec kit constitution, you will going to write what are the core principles of my application. So the next one is, you are going to mention specify. Specify means this is the main thing, right? What are the requirements about what and why? For example, I am creating a processor. Why are you creating this processor application? To manage the processor and to assign it in the incident, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So if I go here, let me take the prompt. I created some small prompts here earlier. So if I put it over here, I'll take auto mode. So I'll execute it. So what it does is, it is going to call this command, right? This command over here. Let's not worry about the technical details. Basically, it is going to access that application and going to generate some commands. And then it is going to basically create certain files for me. So what I'll do is, I'll not going to do anything. I'm not going to run anything now. Let me just stop it over here. And I'll switch the branch because it will take a lot of time, right? So let me just revert it back, move to trash. Let me go to basically my phase 1, I guess. No, not phase 1. It should be phase 2. Yeah. So in the phase 2, okay, I think created by mistake. This one, let me delete this one. Yeah. So what I did is, once I executed my specify, I provided my requirements. So you can see these are my requirements, right? Let me just close this off, minimize this. Yeah, so I specified my requirements, right? So one is, I didn't specify it. I gave the command, it created this. So you need to validate it, right? So for example, there are, once it is generated different stories, like first it needs to create manage processors, and then it needs to able to assign the processors to the existing incidents. And then afterwards, it can also be able to view the, I mean, this is not really required user story, but this is just for the, to ensure that the application is working, right? This is not useful for coding, because once you create the application here to manage the processor, you can also view the processor, right? So, okay, what I'm trying to say is first it creates all the different user stories and functional requirements, and then it ensures that that there are there is a checklist, requirements checklist, right? So these are some guidelines that were given by GitHub. So like ensure that all the user stories are there, ensure all the edge cases are covered, or so on and so forth. Right now, I asked specifically in my prompt, no validations, nothing. I want it to be very simple application. So that's why everything is marked, or else the specification will be very complex. It will have a lot of details here, right? So once I do that, what I do is afterwards, once my specification, my user requirement is ready, my product requirement, what I'll do is I'll go and let's just go and see what it is saying. Once you specify it, let's plan it, right? So by the way, you can also go there and you can edit this. You can add new things, right? This is just an MD file. Or you can also go here and use this specific clarify and then provide more information. You can do it in any way. This is just a markdown document that is going to be created at the end, right? So you can also manually edit it. It's not a problem. There is no right or wrong way to do it, right? So multiple ways to do it. So the next one is planning. So planning is used to create the technical specification document, right? So when I execute this command, so I'm not going to do it right now, but you can execute this command and mention, let's say plan, and create the planning, right? So it will go ahead and create the planning for it, right? Once the planning is created, I'll show you how it looks like. So let me go to the phase 3 here. So when I created the planning document, so you can see here, it created a small planning document, right? Overall technical design document. So what are the languages? It's of course a Node.js application and SQLite and so on and so forth, right? So it took it from the existing project and created the technical specification document, and also constitution check, right? Because I said initially some guiding principles are there, right? Currently, I didn't put anything over there. That's why it is it has not done really because see, no constitution violations detected. Ideally, there would be some detector and it would have fixed them, right, in the technical specification document. And also, there was one more problem that I was facing. So let me show that. So once you create the planning, right, it will also create a quick start document. So when I did create this, what happened is it created the whole structure manually here, right? It asked, I mean, the design specification, technical specification says, go and create the manifest file, go and create the component file. Then what I did is, I went here in the cursor rule, right? I also created some cap Fiori cursor rules. I gave the cursor rules properly, right? I told specifically, whenever an SAP UI application needs to be created, always use SAP Fiori MCP, because you don't need to manually create it. You can ask Fiori MCP to create a Fiori application, it can create the Fiori application, right? So that's exactly what I created this, and I again prompted it here to do it, right? To update the quick start, and then it updated it accordingly. So what I'm also trying to say is, whatever the documents that are generated may be incorrect also sometimes. Because like Krishna was telling earlier, they have the old information, right? They don't have the latest information or the best practices. They hallucinate a lot. So that's why you need to work with these documents to create these documents correctly. And after this phase, right, I mean, of course, it creates a data model, so on and so forth. It understands. If you find something issue, you ask it to rectify it, or you only go there and directly rectify it, right? So this, and also there are some contracts, right? So contracts in the sense that you need to follow this, you need to do that. So this testing should work. This should have these fields, right? So these are the contracts, right? So many things are there. I request you guys to go and check this Spec-It. It's very beautiful and very popular these days. Okay, once I created all my specification is there. So my user stories are there, PRD, my product requirement document is there, my technical specification document is there. Now what I need to do is I need to go and generate the tasks. So I was telling, right, deterministically go step by step, right? So what I do is I'll go to the phase 4, and in the phase 4, I generated, what I all did is I just did tasks here, and then I just clicked enter, right? It generated the tasks. Again, I'm not showing it because it takes hell a lot of time, right? At least 1-2 hours it will take. So as you can see, my tasks are there here, right? See, all are empty tasks because it generated all the empty tasks here. And of course, while generating these tasks, it will also call the MCP server to see some, at the specification level it uses, but task level, it generates just the tasks, right? So once it generates the tasks, just verify them if they are correct or not. Once everything is correct, what you need to do is, all you need to do is /implement, right? Once you ask it to implement it, what it does is it goes through this task document. One by one, it will implement. When it is implementing it, the good thing is it reads all your specifications. So that way it ensures it is very deterministic. It knows the knowledge about your project, your technical guidelines, specifications, and everything, right? So now, if I go to the phase 5 here, so of course, as you can see, there is no application created yet. I think it's only still incident. In the phase 5, once I call the implement, what it did, it has implemented the application. I can go here, see it has implemented it. And you can also go and verify here my tasks, right? So it has completed all the tasks, right? All the tasks it had completed. And also it has done the testing and it created the implementation summary, right? If I go here, if I refresh it, okay, it's not working. Let me restart it one more time. CDS watch. Okay, it's taking time. Okay, yeah, done. So now I go to my processor application. It created this small application, right? So you can edit and create it, or you can also go here. Of course, my main requirement is I need to be able to assign the processor, right? So I was able to assign it. I didn't write a single line of code here. What all I did is I created a beautiful and powerful specifications, and I used my junior developer who has a short-term memory, who is my cursor coding agent, to develop this application by passing the right context, right? And that is the essence of context engineering, right? When I say context engineering, you pass the right context, ensure you develop the application correctly. And don't worry, one more thing is you need to also ensure sometimes your context might be overloaded, right? So if you keep chatting with it, it will start to hallucinate, right? Because LLMs has so much context only they will support, so much tokens only you can send. So in that case, what you need to do is, all you need to do is just start a new start and ask it to continue the implementation, right? Like for example, implement, continue the remaining tasks. Usually it will never work without the specification, without this approach. It will work now because you have all the context and you also have tasks which are completed to certain, let's say it is completed till here. So it will start from the phase 6. So what I'm trying to say is if you follow this approach, you can start multiple charts also, and then you can ensure you don't lose the context. It will still work as is. So that's about the spec-driven development. I'll stop here and over to you, Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Mahesh. Cool. Okay, so thanks, Mahesh. I think, yeah, all our attempt is towards reducing hallucination, right? As you see. So we have LLM, which is, of course, improving its capabilities, but hallucinations will always also be there. Then we have all these engineering tools, right? Using by IDEs, Notebook LM, or various libraries, just to ensure that we supply the right context to it so that we reduce the hallucination as far as possible, right? So even here, when I'm creating a Bootstrap, a Bootstrap application, right? I have given a previous application so that it doesn't hallucinate and it follows a pattern, right? So if you remember, before Mahesh took over, I had triggered bootstrapping my managed customers. As you can see here, it created mta.yaml, everything very similar to how managed vendors is. Okay, even it created a bash file for running front end, back end, app router, everything. So it basically created an very much similar to manage vendors, but with all the configurations it basically has copied. Of course, one issue might be that you might be carrying on with the technical debt, right? So that's up to you to get rid of the technical debt if it is there. If you keep on copying the same application, so that is one downside you can think of. Okay, so that's about bootstrapping. So let me quickly go through few other tips which I have. So the next thing which I'm super excited about is the GitHub Copilot's code review. So as I said earlier, we use at our customer we use GitHub as the version control. You can write code review instruction, right? So many a times maybe something's related to naming conventions or something related to an extra lines, right? And there are, of course, you can use linters and all those things. But many times, whenever code review comes from a machine, it would be more acceptable, right? Whenever those are whenever those comments are subjective, you can write, those via, in these code review instructions. So I'll just show you one instruction which I wrote. So as you hear, okay, so let me go back to GitHub Copilot. So here within your app, within the .github, you can write instructions for code review, right? For example, here I say use a base controller, use a particular semantic controller, something around error handling, how to use feature flags, so on, right? You can actually write all the frequent mistakes which your junior developers might be doing, or even senior developers, and list them and ensure that there are checklists to ensure that those doesn't happen, right? So those are the specific checklists you can create via code review instructions. And when you merge your pull requests, right? When you create a pull request, so here you see in the code review instructions, I have given an example, never use console.log, rather use caps log.info, log.error. Okay, so I come to the code review these are the actual code reviews. As you can see here, the Copilot has told replace console.log with proper cap logging. And it also said me that this was guidance from the repository custom instructions, meaning the custom instructions which I gave it for doing the code review. So I'm finding this super useful to ensure that the code quality stays and amazing tool. Okay, then the last feature which I have is using agent mode in ChatGPT. Okay, so think that you have written the code. I mean, coming from you have got onboarded, you have got familiar, you have written the code, and you have deployed it. Now, say you need to do some initial data loading, right? So, say business has given you on spreadsheet and asked you to upload, right? So let's look into the spreadsheet which business has given. Okay, in this case, business has given me a product ID, a product name. I'm just taking another scenario here. Basically, I have to upload product. Okay, a category name, brand name, right? Business has not given me category ID because they do not know what is a technical ID. They have not given me a brand ID. They have not given me a supplier ID. They have not given me a unit ID, so on, right? So this is just database, normalization, right? So, but business would give me the descriptions, but it is up to me to have lookup tables like this category ID and category name. There is a brand lookup, supplier lookup, so on, right? Okay, so yeah, it's slightly in a lower lower font, but there are various lookup tables. And also maybe in my entity, I have one more column, which is basically a multiplication of price and stock. Now, of course, I can use, and this is the simplistic calculation which I'm saying, but I have been able to get very complex calculations as well. Say I need another column, which basically is a multiplication of price and stock quantity, or you can put any complex logic as well. So this is a sheet I have. I have lookups as well. And what I will do is I will open ChatGPT. Okay, so here I will attach this particular file, business data, along with the lookups, or if the lookups are in separate files, we can basically add all of them. So then I have the prompt. Let me copy that. Okay, so what I've written is, let me trigger that meanwhile. So here I'm selecting the agent mode. and triggering it. And then I will read the prompt for you. So I have to prepare a CSV file, which I can upload to HANA table products. Below is the entity structure. I'm giving it the entity structure by copying it from my CDS file. So there are lookup tables that will provide the ID for each one of them. I'm not even saying, the product ID has this sheet, right? Or category ID has this sheet. I'm not even saying that. I've just given all those sheets in a single go. I'm saying prepare a CSV that I can upload into the products DB table. And I'm also saying, I'm just saying total value is price into stock quantity. Let's see what it really does. Okay. So it basically triggers up a virtual machine, usually in Python. And for Excels, usually it uses pandas library, if you're aware of Python. Okay, it's still trying to, okay, it's having some issue with the file. So let me try again. Okay, looks like it got, I closed the, okay, let me try to close the file. Okay, so okay, it's already analyzing data. It has got hold of data. So let's just give it a moment. And before I get into one last slide. Yeah, okay, what else you can do? Say in your CAP app, probably you have a huge error log, where things have failed, right? You can actually feed that entire error log into, ChatGPT and ask it to extract error rows, which you have to reprocess, right? You can do such things as well. Of course, you ensure that you use the agent mode. The advantage being agent mode actually creates Python code to run your code. That's why there are very less hallucinations in those cases. Okay, so it's still running. So meanwhile, the last slide. So what if I'm using low-code tools where there are no coding at all, right? And of course, SAP is coming up with the Joule tooling for build process automation, iFlows and all. But one thing which you have to always look for is in these low-code based tools, usually there will be ways to export your configuration and import your configuration. What you can do is export a build process automation project, bring it to ChatGPT agent mode, make all the changes, and then import them back to the low-code tool, right? So that has been working wonders as well. So yeah, just want to share that, and you can do that with mermaid diagrams as well. Okay, so let's see if this has really. Okay, let's give it 10 seconds, or let me go to.
I think it was not able to get the access of Excel itself.
Okay. Should I stop it and run again? Worked for 3.
Maybe you can show the old one if you have that.
Okay.
I think some network issue probably.
Okay, I think I'll drop that. So basically, the agent mode is great for your, creating data, or whenever you have to work with multiple Excel sheets and prepare your final data. Yeah, so that's all we have for today. Hope that was useful. Time for Q&A. We just have 1 minute. Antonio.
Yes, well, thank you very much. You end up sharing a lot of tools that you end up using as part of the development process, right? Be it from actually generating code to all the way to code reviews, right? On GitHub. There's one question and multiple comments. So I would definitely invite you to read all the comments in the chat after the session. The first question was after you were showing, for example, Notebook LM, there's a question from Abhijit, which is, how safe is it to put customer client documents on any LLM? We need to be cautious, right? Any filter or any masking can be done before putting that type of information, for example. So do you know of any filtering that can be used with something like Notebook LM?
I think, of course, and that's a very valid question which we get. I think the best way is to convince your customer to get Google's Notebook LM or Microsoft Office 365. Even Microsoft has that. So I think that's the best thing which you can do. And rest all are, I think, if you do not have your customer's approval to use all these sensitive documents, then do not. But the important point which I am making is for the domain knowledge, actually, you don't really need customer sensitive documents, right? For the use case which I used, I was actually downloading all the documents from Services Australia's public document, right? If you want domain knowledge on clinical trials, if you want domain knowledge on finance, procurement, these are already available. But if you go in the traditional way, it takes so many hours for you to digest all of them. So all I'm saying is use Notebook LM for public documents unless you have a enterprise license for it.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good use case. Like I've seen, for example, that feature of the podcast generator,
Yeah, podcast.
and it's it's quite funny, you know. Like you could easily distill, for example, a large content, let's say, imagine like even like a podcast episode, you know, like that lasts for 2 hours. You could distill it to something that can end up lasting 20 minutes. Obviously, it's like a summary version of it, but it's actually quite entertaining as well. Or if you have a large corpus of text, for example, to process, then yeah, it might be easy to just listen to it for a bit, right? Like a summarized sort of version of it. That's quite cool. There's a comment regarding, for example, some of the command line instructions that were generated by one of the LLMs. And for example, there was one where there was a git command followed by a pipe and a cat. In the end, that cat doesn't really make much sense there. So I guess it's always good to be careful or to obviously understand what's generating. It's not just a matter of copy and pasting, right? Because yeah, you can have in this case it's just
with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, there was
And
something
that's why I was
else.
also telling that you need to be the main person who is driving these coding agents, right? To do the coding part of it, right? So
Yeah,
you need to be the driver in the seat. So
yeah.
that is very important.
Sorry, we need to drop now because we have a session starting now. So thank you very
Okay.
much, everyone that joined, and see you later.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.